What's going on, Bronco fans? Thanks for tuning into this video. Now that the Bronco Sport has been on the streets for just a little bit now, I didn't think it would take too long before an aftermarket company would start modifying it with either horsepower or lift kits or accessories, things that pretty much any vehicle can benefit from, because let's face it, we love to modify vehicles. Now the Bronco Sport is no different than any of those, especially with the 2-liter EcoBoost engine. Now the EcoBoost engines are usually relatively on the smaller side, but they produce big power. That's what Vivid Racing was trying to pull out of this little 2-liter, is more power, and they did their custom tune to find out exactly how much they could get. Now before I get into horsepower numbers and things like that, I want to see if you can point out the fact that this Bronco Sport, they claim, does sit a little bit higher than a stock one. They put a small lift on it. They didn't specify what the lift was or how much higher it is, but you will be able to see that it is got a little bit more wheel well gap there than I've noticed on other Bronco Sports. Maybe it's a spacer lift, maybe it's not, but I'm going to play the odds and say it's probably a spacer lift. Either way, it does look a little bit better, and because it's strapped down on the dyno, it's probably pulling it down a little bit, so out on the streets it might look a little bit higher. But we're not here for the lift, we're here for the horsepower. Let's talk horsepower numbers. Now in stock trim, the Ford Bronco Sport will produce 250 horsepower, 275 pound-feet of torque at the crank. On the dyno, that translates to 186 horsepower and 246 pound-feet of torque at the tires. Now in order to tune the Bronco Sport, Vivid Racing did remove the ECU from the wheel well, flashed the computer, reinstalled the ECU. Now what Vivid Racing got after the tune was a total of 305 horsepower and 350 pound-feet of torque at the crank. That came out with 222 horsepower and 300 pound-feet of torque at the tires. That's a pretty substantial jump. That's an additional 55 horsepower and 75 pound-feet of torque at the crank. Now those numbers aren't just peak numbers. Down low, where all that torque really counts, whether it be coming off a red light or off-roading, Bronco Sport put down 230 pound-feet of torque at 3,300 RPMs, but after the tune, at the same 3,300 RPMs, it put down 290 pound-feet of torque. That's a substantial jump. That is usable torque that you're gonna feel. Now at that same 3,300 RPMs, the Bronco Sport put down 150 horsepower stock, and then after the tune, 190. So that is a 40 horsepower jump at 3,300 RPMs. Again, at this RPM range, you're gonna be either on trails or on the street, and that you're going to feel. Now on a higher RPM range at 5,300 RPM, they are saying that the Bronco Sport put down 170 horsepower, but after the tune put down 215. Again, a pretty substantial jump. These are all very big number jumps. I mean, but that is not uncommon. Ford really is conservative with their tune on these EcoBoost engines. We've seen that with the 3.5, we've seen it with the 2.3 in the Ranger, and now we're seeing it with the 2-liter in the Bronco Sport. Now with all those good fun numbers out of the way, this does come with a caveat. Vivid Racing says this ECU flash is for off-road use only, and they've required our customers to sign a waiver of acknowledgement to understand that. What that means is if you have them flash your ECU, there is a high probability that you will not likely pass your state emissions test afterwards. Now considering you are going to have to get an emissions test on a regular, this isn't really going to be ideal for your street vehicle. So for $600, it's a really good deal for the tune, but I think there's other ways around this. Now I'm not saying that Vivid Racing are bad tuners, I just feel that there are other companies that may be able to do the same thing for your Bronco Sport on a more street legal level. And I know I just mentioned it, but it's no big secret. EcoBoost engines are very conservative on their tune. Even the smallest, most mild tune will give you substantial horsepower and torque gains. So tuning the Bronco Sport is probably a very good idea considering all these numbers were just the tune alone. No cold air intakes, no exhaust systems, just the tune. So I think tuning your Bronco Sport is going to be the best modification you can do. But if you plan on driving it every day, which I'm sure 99.9% of you are going to do, you might want to find a company that can tune it and still keep it emissions legal. So leave your comments down below what you think of the Bronco Sport horsepower numbers with the new ECU flash. I think they're very impressive. I think there's going to be a lot of other companies coming out very shortly with their custom tunes, not to mention coming out with lift kits and accessories and wheels and tires. I think this is going to be a great platform for the not hardcore off-roader like the Bronco is going to be, but for the more overland oriented person who may only use some mild trails and things to go over. This is going to be a really good platform. So if you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. I do greatly appreciate it. Make sure you drop a like on the video and don't forget to hit that subscribe button on your way out for more automotive news and content, and I'll catch you on the next upload.